The moment David Chen collapsed during his presentation, his 9-year-old daughter Lily knew something had to change. What she didn't know was that the CEO, watching from the back of the room, held the key to healing wounds that went deeper than anyone imagined. If you've ever felt like the weight of protecting those you love is too heavy to bear, this story will remind you that sometimes the help we need comes from the most unexpected places. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this journey of trauma healing and finding family in the most surprising ways will leave you believing in second chances again. She's been watching us. Single father discovers his CEO's heartbreaking secret. David Chen's hands trembled as he stared at the resignation letter on his kitchen table. The words blurred together through exhaustion and tears he refused to shed, not in front of Lily, who was sleeping soundly in her bedroom down the hall. The panic attack during this afternoon's presentation had been the worst yet. Right in the middle of explaining the new security protocol to the board, his vision had tunneled. His chest had tightened, and suddenly he wasn't in Tech Nova's conference room anymore. He was back in that twisted metal wreck 2 years ago. Amy's voice calling his name, getting weaker and weaker while he struggled uselessly against his seatbelt, unable to reach her. "Dad," Lily's soft voice from the doorway startled him back to the present. She stood there in her purple pajamas, dark hair mussed from sleep, clutching the small teddy bear Amy had given her before the accident. "Hey, sweetheart, what are you doing up?" David quickly turned the resignation letter face down and forced a smile. "You were making noise. Are you okay?" Lily's 9-year-old eyes held a wisdom that broke his heart. She'd learned to read his moods too well since Amy died. "Just some work stuff, nothing for you to worry about." He patted his lap, and she climbed up without hesitation, settling against his chest like she used to when she was smaller. Was it the scary thoughts again? David's throat constricted. Dr. Kim had explained to Lily that Daddy sometimes had scary thoughts about the accident, but hearing it from his daughter's mouth made him feel like the worst father in the world. "A little bit, but it's getting better." The lie came easily now. Lily was quiet for a moment, her small hand resting on his chest. "Mom used to sing when you had bad dreams." She did. Amy's voice had always been his anchor, her presence the only thing that could chase away the darkness that sometimes consumed him. "Do you want me to sing?" David's eyes burned. "I'd like that very much." As Lily's soft voice filled the kitchen with Amy's favorite lullaby, David made his decision. Tomorrow he'd submit the resignation. He couldn't risk another breakdown at work, not when Lily needed him to be strong. His savings would last a few months, maybe longer if he was careful. It would have to be enough. The doorbell rang at 10:23 p.m. David frowned, checking the time on his phone. Who would be visiting this late? He carried Lily back to her room, tucking her in with promises that everything was fine, then returned to peer through the peephole. Victoria Zhang stood on his porch, completely soaked from the rain that had started an hour ago. The CEO of Tech Nova, the woman who'd built a tech empire before she turned 30, was standing at his door looking vulnerable in a way he'd never seen during their brief interactions at company meetings. He opened the door, confusion washing over him. "Ms. Zhang, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you." Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, an emotion he couldn't identify. "About your resignation, about other things." "How did you? I haven't submitted it yet." "May I come in, please? It's about Amy." And David's world tilted. "What about Amy?" Victoria stepped into his entryway, water dripping onto the hardwood floor. She looked around his modest home, the family photos on the walls, Lily's art projects stuck to the refrigerator, the stack of medical bills from Amy's final months that he still couldn't bring himself to file away. "She was my sister." The words hit David like a physical blow. He staggered backward, gripping the doorframe for support. "That's impossible. Amy didn't have a sister." "She cut ties with our family when she married you." Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. "Our parents disapproved of her choice to marry someone outside our social circle. She chose love over money, and we let her go." David stared at this woman who looked nothing like Amy. Where his wife had been warm and open, Victoria was sharp and controlled. Where Amy had dressed simply, Victoria wore clothes that cost more than David's monthly salary. But now that he was looking, really looking, he could see it in the shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. "You're lying." But even as he said it, he remembered fragments. Amy's occasional mentions of a younger sister who was too smart for her own good, the way she'd gone quiet whenever he'd asked about her family. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph. It was old, slightly faded. Two little girls on a swing set, maybe 6 and 8 years old. The older girl had Amy's smile. David's legs gave out. He sank onto his couch, the photo trembling in his hands. Why now? Why are you telling me this now? Because you're about to quit the job my sister died wishing she could provide for you and Lily. Victoria sat across from him, no longer the intimidating CEO, but a woman carrying 2 years of guilt. Amy used to send me updates through a mutual friend. Not often, maybe twice a year. She was so proud of your work, David. She said you were brilliant, that you were going to change the world. She never told me about you. She was protecting you. Our parents tried to buy her off once, offered her money to leave you. When she refused, they threatened to make your life difficult, damage your career, your reputation. Amy cut contact completely to keep you safe. David felt something shatter inside his chest. All these years, Amy had carried that burden alone. She would have told me. We told each other everything. She was going to, after Lily started school when things were more settled. Victoria's voice broke. She never got the chance. Wow. The room fell silent except for the rain against the windows and David's ragged breathing. Everything he thought he knew about his wife's past was a lie. She'd sacrificed her family for him and he'd never even known. The panic attacks, he said suddenly. You know about them? Victoria nodded. I was in the back of the room during your presentation today. I've been keeping an eye on you and Lily since the accident. I know that makes me sound like a stalker, but I needed to know my sister's family was okay. We're not okay. The admission came out harsh and broken. I can barely hold it together. Lily shouldn't have to take care of me like this. She's 9 years old and she's asking if I'm having scary thoughts because I can't hide it from her anymore. Amy wouldn't want you to quit. If he's dead, the words exploded out of him, years of suppressed rage finally finding a target. She's dead because I couldn't save her, and now I can't even be the father she wanted me to be. So don't tell me what Amy would want. You gave up that right when you let her walk away. Victoria flinched as if he'd hit her, but she didn't back down. You're right, we failed her. I failed her. I was 17 and stupid, and I let my parents' disapproval matter more than my sister's happiness. I've regretted it every day for the last 12 years. She reached into her bag again and pulled out a manila folder. But I can't change the past. All I can do is try to honor what Amy would have wanted for you and Lily. David stared at the folder without taking it. What is it? A business proposition. I'm spinning off Technova's AI security division into a separate company, Gentech. I want you to be my CTO. That's impossible. I don't have the experience. You have exactly the experience I need. You understand the technical side better than anyone, and you've been developing revolutionary approaches to neural network security. Amy was right. You are going to change the world. David shook his head. I can't handle the responsibility. What if I have another panic attack during an important meeting? What if I make a decision that costs people their jobs? What if you succeed? Victoria interrupted gently. What if you create something that makes Lily proud of her father? What if you build the legacy Amy believed you could? Why would you do this? You don't know me. You said yourself, I'm the reason your sister cut ties with your family. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, her gaze drifting to a family photo on the bookshelf, David, Amy, and baby Lily at the beach. All three of them laughing at something outside the frame. My parents died in a car accident 18 months ago, she said finally. They never reconciled with Amy, never met Lily, never even knew when Amy passed away. They died angry and alone, and I realized I was following the same path. Successful, wealthy, and completely isolated from the only family I had left. She looked back at David. Amy chose you over everything. Money, status, family approval. That tells me you're someone worth fighting for. And Lily, Victoria's voice softened. Lily is Amy's legacy. She deserves to grow up knowing her father is capable of extraordinary things. Before David could respond, a small voice came from the stairway. Dad, who are you talking to? Both adults turned to see Lily peeking around the corner, her teddy bear clutched against her chest. She looked at Victoria with curious but unafraid eyes. "This is Ms. Zhang, sweetheart. She works with Daddy." Lily studied Victoria with the intense focus only children possessed. "You look sad." Victoria smiled, and for the first time since she'd arrived, it reached her eyes. "I am a little sad, but talking to your dad is helping. My mom used to say that talking about sad things makes them smaller." Lily took a few steps into the room. "Is that why you're here so late?" "Something like that." Victoria glanced at David, asking permission with her eyes. "Your mom and I used to be very close when we were little girls, but we lost touch and I've missed her very much." Lily's expression grew serious. "Do you have the sad memories too, about people who aren't here anymore?" David's breath caught. "Out of the mouths of babes, yes," Victoria whispered. "I do. Dad says the memories get easier if you share them with people who love the same person." Lily looked between the two adults with startling insight. "Maybe you could share your mom memories with us sometimes too." David felt tears threatening for the second time that night. This child, Amy's daughter, was offering comfort to a stranger with the same generous heart her mother had possessed. "I would like that very much," Victoria managed. Lily nodded, satisfied. "Okay, but first Daddy needs to not be scared anymore." She walked over to David and climbed onto his lap with practiced ease. "He has bad dreams about not being able to help people, but he's really good at helping. He helped me learn to ride my bike, and he helps his work friends with computer problems, and he makes the best pancakes in the world." Victoria looked at David over Lily's head. "She's right, you know, about being good at helping people. I couldn't help the person who mattered most." "You couldn't prevent a drunk driver from running a red light," Victoria said firmly. "That doesn't make you a failure. It makes you human." Lily twisted in his lap to look at him seriously. "Mom always said that loving someone means doing your best, not being perfect. And your best is pretty good, Dad." David hugged his daughter close, overwhelmed by her wisdom and her unwavering faith in him. When he looked up, Victoria was watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read, longing mixed with hope. "The CTO position," he said slowly. "What would that actually mean?" Victoria leaned forward. "Full autonomy over the technical direction of the company. Equity stake that makes you a real partner, not just an employee. Flexible schedule built around Lily's needs. The chance to build something revolutionary. And if I have another panic attack of him, then we'll deal with it together as family." She paused. "Because that's what we are, David. Amy made sure of that when she chose to love you." David looked down at Lily, who was listening to every word with remarkable maturity. "What do you think, kiddo, should Daddy take the boss?" Lily considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. "Will it make you less scared?" "I don't know. Maybe. Will it help other people?" David looked at Victoria, who nodded. "Yes, it would help a lot of people." "Then you should do it. Mom always said you were brave. You just forgot sometimes." Lily hugged him tighter. "And I'll help you remember." Victoria stood up, extending the folder toward him. "Sleep on it. Read through everything. But David, Amy believed in you. Lily believes in you. And despite everything that's happened, I believe in you too." David took the folder with shaking hands. "This doesn't fix everything. The panic attacks, the grief, the years we lost." "No," Victoria agreed, "but it's a start, a chance to build something beautiful from the pieces we have left." After Victoria left, David sat in his kitchen, reading through the most generous job offer he'd ever seen. Lily had fallen asleep against his shoulder, her small hands still clutching her teddy bear. He thought about Amy, about the sacrifices she'd made that he'd never known about. She'd given up her family for him, and now that family was offering him a chance to honor her memory. Maybe it was time to stop running from the fear and start running towards something better. Maybe for once he could be as brave as the women who loved him thought he was. The resignation letter still sat on the table, but now it seemed like a relic from a different life, a life where he was alone in his struggle. Tomorrow he would call Victoria and accept her offer. Tonight he would hold his daughter and try to believe that Amy's faith in him hadn't been misplaced. The rain had stopped, and through the kitchen window, David could see the first stars beginning to appear through the breaking clouds. 3 weeks later, David Chen stood in the gleaming conference room of Gen Tech's temporary offices, watching Victoria present their AI security platform to a room full of potential investors. His panic attacks had decreased since accepting the CTO position, but his hands still trembled slightly when he thought about everything riding on this presentation. The neural network architecture David has designed doesn't just detect threats. Victoria was saying it anticipates them. David, would you walk us through the technical specifications? David stood, his prepared notes steady in his hands. This was different from the disaster 3 weeks ago. He was talking about his creation, something he understood better than anyone in the room. As he explained the intricate details of the security protocols he'd developed, he felt a familiar confidence returning. This was what Amy had seen in him, not just technical skill, but the ability to envision solutions that others couldn't. The presentation went flawlessly. After the investors left with promises to discuss funding, Victoria found David in his office, a space she'd designed with his specific needs in mind. Natural light noise canceling features in a direct view of the parking lot so he could see when Lily's school bus arrived. That was brilliant, she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. You've just secured enough funding to make Gentech a major player in the industry. We secured it, David corrected. I'm still learning the business side. You're learning faster than I expected. Amy always said you had an intuitive understanding of people. That's what makes great leaders. They'd fallen into a rhythm over the past weeks, these moments where Victoria would share some memory of Amy that David had never heard. It was painful and healing at the same time, like learning about a different version of his wife. Speaking of Amy, Victoria continued, I have something for you. She pulled out a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver locket tarnished with age. This was Amy's. She left it behind when she chose to start fresh with you. I've been carrying it for 12 years, waiting for the right time to return it. David opened the locket with trembling fingers. Inside was a photo he'd never seen. Amy as a teenager laughing at something off camera, her expression identical to Lily's when she found something particularly amusing. She was 16 when I took that picture, Victoria said softly. It was right after she'd started dating this boy our parents hated. Not you, someone before you. She was so defiant, so sure that love was worth fighting for. I envied her courage even then. David traced Amy's face with his fingertip. She never showed me any photos from before we met, said the past wasn't important. For Amy, it wasn't. She was always focused on building something new rather than dwelling on what she'd left behind. But I thought Lily might like to have it someday, to see her mother as a young woman with dreams. Before David could respond, his phone buzzed with a text. From Lily's school, please call immediately regarding Lily Chen. David's blood turned to ice. I have to go. Something's wrong at Lily's school. Victoria was already grabbing her car keys. I'll drive. 20 minutes later, they rushed into the principal's office to find Lily sitting calmly in a chair, her backpack at her feet and a slight bruise on her left cheek. David's panic attack started immediately. Tunnel vision, rapid heartbeat, the familiar sense of the world closing in around him. Lily, are you okay? What happened? He knelt beside her chair, his hands shaking as he checked for other injuries. I'm fine, Dad. Really. Lily's voice was steady, more mature than her 9 years should have allowed. Tommy Morrison was being mean to Madison again, calling her mom names because she works at the grocery store. When I told him to stop, he pushed Madison down and made her cry. Principal Matthews cleared his throat. Mr. Chen, Lily, well, she handled the situation rather definitively. What does that mean? Victoria asked, though there was something in her tone that suggested she already suspected. Lily looked at her father with completely clear eyes. I used what Sensei Kim taught me. Tommy grabbed my arm when I helped Madison up, so I did the wrist escape, and then I might have kicked him in the shin. Pretty hard. David stared at his daughter. Sensei Kim, Lily, what are you talking about? Tommy's fine, Principal Matthews added quickly. Bruised shin, bruised ego. But Lily using martial arts at school is serious even in defense of another student. Martial arts. David's panic attack was getting worse. Lily doesn't know martial arts. Lily bit her lips, suddenly looking every bit of 9 years old. I've been taking lessons after school. For 6 months. Mrs. Rodriguez picks me up with her kids and brings me home after. The room spun. David gripped the arms of his chair, trying to focus on breathing. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were already scared all the time. Lily's voice was small but honest. I thought if I could learn to protect myself and protect other people, then you wouldn't have to worry so much about bad things happening. Victoria knelt down beside David's chair. Breathe, David. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, like we practiced. As his breathing slowly returned to normal, David looked at his daughter with new eyes. While he'd been drowning in fear and guilt, she'd been quietly developing strength. She'd seen her father struggling and taken action to help, even though she was just a child. How long have you known, he asked Victoria, about the self-defense lessons since the first week? Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned it when I was setting up your flexible schedule. Victoria's expression was apologetic but not guilty. I thought you knew and were okay with it. You should have told me. Maybe, but Lily asked me not to unless it became necessary. She was worried you'd make her stop if you knew. David looked between his daughter and Victoria, realizing they'd formed their own quiet alliance while he'd been focused on his own struggles. It should have felt like betrayal, but instead it felt like family. Like the way Amy used to anticipate his needs and address them before he even realized what was wrong. Principal Matthews leaned forward. Mr. Chen, I should mention that several parents have called to thank me for Lily's intervention today. Tommy Morrison has been bullying various children for months, and today was the first time anyone stood up to him effectively. Is he hurt? David asked the father, and him still concerned despite everything. His pride more than anything else. His parents have been notified and we're implementing a more comprehensive anti-bullying program starting next week. The principal looked at Lily with something like admiration. Your daughter showed remarkable restraint. She could have hurt Tommy much more severely, but chose to use only the minimum force necessary to stop the situation. In the car afterward, David sat in the passenger seat while Victoria drove, staring at Lily through the rearview mirror. She was doing her homework as if getting suspended from school for martial arts was just another Tuesday. We need to talk about this, he said finally. I know. Lily didn't look up from her math problems. Are you mad? David considered the question. Was he mad? Scared, definitely. Confused, absolutely. But mad, I'm proud of you for protecting Madison. I'm concerned that you felt you had to keep secrets from me. I didn't want to keep secrets. Lily's voice was quiet. But every time something bad happens, you get the scared look and you can't breathe right. I thought if I could learn to be strong, then you could be less scared. Victoria caught David's eye in the rearview mirror. She's been protecting you the same way Amy used to. The comparison hit David like a physical blow. Amy had kept her family situation secret to protect him. Now Lily was keeping her self-defense training secret for the same reason. Both of them had seen his vulnerabilities and tried to shield him from additional worry. Lily, he said carefully, it's not your job to take care of me. I'm supposed to take care of you. But we take care of each other, Lily replied matter-of-factly. That's what families do. Mom told me that before she died. She said loving someone means helping them be brave when they forget how. David felt tears threatening again. Amy's wisdom passed down to their daughter was still guiding them both. Okay, he said finally. New rule, no more secrets. If you want to learn self-defense, we talk about it. If I'm having a hard day, I tell you instead of pretending everything's fine. Deal. Deal. Lily grinned in the rearview mirror. Does this mean I can keep taking lessons? David looked at Victoria, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, but I want to meet this Sensei Kim, and I want to understand what you're learning and why. You could take lessons too, Lily suggested hopefully. Sensei Kim says martial arts help with anxiety and focus. It might help with your scared thoughts. Out of the mouths of babes again. That evening, the three of them sat around David's kitchen table, a scene that had become surprisingly natural over the past weeks. Victoria had fallen into the habit of staying for dinner a few nights a week, sharing stories about Amy and learning about the life her sister had built. Tell me about the lesson where you learned the move you used today, David said, still processing everything that had happened. Lily demonstrated the wrist escape on Victoria, explaining the technique with impressive precision. As David watched his 9-year-old daughter competently discuss leverage and balance, he realized she'd developed confidence he hadn't even noticed. You've been thinking strategically, Victoria observed. Not just reacting, but planning. Sensei Kim says that's the most important part. Understanding what you're trying to accomplish before you act. Lily looked at her father seriously. I wasn't trying to hurt Tommy. I was trying to help Madison and make him stop. And it worked, David acknowledged. Though next time, let's try talking to the teachers first. I did try that last month when Tommy called Madison's mom a loser. Mrs. Patterson said she'd handle it, but Tommy just got sneakier about being mean. David exchanged a look with Victoria. Their daughter, because somehow Victoria had become part of their family unit, had identified a systemic problem and taken direct action when the established authorities failed to respond effectively. You know what this means, Victoria said with a slight smile. You're definitely Amy's daughter. She had the same instinct to protect people when she saw injustice. Really? Lily's eyes lit up. What kind of things did Mom do? Victoria settled back in her chair, clearly pleased to have another Amy story to share. When we were teenagers, there was a girl at our school who was being harassed by a group of older boys. The teachers ignored it, said it was just teasing. So Amy organized a group of students to walk with this girl between classes, eat lunch with her, include her in activities. The harassment stopped within a week. She never told me about that, David said. She never thought of herself as doing anything special. She just saw someone who needed help and helped them. Victoria looked at Lily with affection. You have her heart. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, David and Victoria sat on his front porch watching the neighborhood settle into evening quiet. The panic attack from earlier had left him drained but oddly clear-headed. I owe you an apology, he said finally. For what? For assuming you were trying to undermine my parenting by not telling me about the martial arts lessons. For not trusting that you had Lily's best interests at heart. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I should have told you. I made the same mistake Amy used to make, trying to protect you from things I thought would cause you stress. It's not your fault. I've been so focused on my own fear that I missed what was actually happening with Lily. She's been growing stronger while I've been falling apart. You haven't been falling apart. You've been grieving and healing and learning to be a single father. That's not the same thing. David leaned back in his chair, looking up at the stars that were beginning to appear. Amy would have handled today better. Amy would have been just as shocked to discover Lily had secret martial arts skills, Victoria said with certainty. But she would have been proud, just like you are. How do you know I'm proud? Because when Principal Matthews described what Lily did, you tried not to smile. And because you spent the entire drive home asking questions about her training instead of forbidding her from continuing. David considered this. She was right. Underneath the panic and confusion, he was incredibly proud of Lily's courage and judgment. The CTO position, he said, changing the subject. Is it working, Beige, honestly? Better than I hoped. You've streamlined our development process, identified security vulnerabilities our team missed, and somehow made everyone excited about coming to work. Victoria paused. But more than that, you've reminded me what Amy saw in collaborative leadership. She always said the best solutions come from people working together, not from one person trying to control everything. I couldn't do this without you. The flexible schedule, understanding when I need to step back, covering for me when the panic attacks hit. That's what family does, Victoria said, echoing Lily's words from earlier. We take care of each other. David looked at this woman who'd appeared in their lives like an answer to a prayer he hadn't known how to voice. Is that what we are? I'd like to be, if you'll have me. Before David could answer, a movement in the front window caught his eye. Lily was peeking through the curtains, clearly eavesdropping on their conversation. Lily Chen, he called out, back to bed. Now. Her head disappeared immediately, but they could hear her giggling as she ran back to her room. She likes you, David observed. I like her too. She's exactly what Amy hoped she'd be. Brave kind, smart enough to see solutions where adults see problems. Tomorrow I want to visit Amy's grave, all three of us. It's time Lily met her aunt properly. Victoria's breath caught. Are you sure Amy kept you separate from our life to protect us? But we're not fragile anymore. At least not too fragile to handle having family who loves us. David stood up suddenly, certain of his next words. And I want to tell Amy about Gen Tech, about Lily's martial arts adventures, about the fact that her little sister is helping us both become the people she believed we could be. Victoria wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. She would love that. As they said goodnight, David felt something shift in his chest. For the first time since Amy's death, The future felt like something to build toward instead of something to survive. Tomorrow they would visit Amy together as a family. Tonight he would sleep peacefully, knowing that both his daughter and his wife's sister were watching over them. The panic attacks weren't gone, might never be completely gone, but they no longer felt like they were going to destroy him. Sometimes David thought as he locked up the house, the strongest thing you could do was let other people help you be strong. 6 months after Victoria first appeared on David's doorstep, the three of them stood together at Amy's graveside on a crisp October morning. Lily held a bouquet of sunflowers, Amy's favorite, while Victoria carried a small wrapped gift. "Hi, Mom," Lily said simply as if Amy might respond. "I brought Aunt Victoria to meet you properly." David watched Victoria's face as she knelt beside the headstone, tracing Amy's name with trembling fingers. "Hi, big sister. I'm sorry it took me so long to come." The cemetery was quiet except for the sound of autumn leaves rustling in the breeze. David had avoided this place for months after the funeral, too consumed by guilt and grief to face the finality of Amy's absence. But now, with Lily's hand in his and Victoria beside them, it felt less like an ending and more like a bridge between the past and whatever came next. "I have some things to tell you," David said to the headstone, his voice steadier than he'd expected. "Lily's become quite the martial artist. She's been secretly protecting kids at school and teaching her old man about courage. You'd be so proud of her." Lily squeezed his hand. "Tell her about the company." "Right. Victoria and I started Gentech. Remember how you always said I was going to change the world? Well, turns out you might have been right. We're developing AI security systems that could protect millions of people's data. Your sister's a brilliant business partner, by the way. You picked a good family to be born into." Victoria unwrapped her gift, Amy's locket now polished and hanging from a new silver chain. She placed it gently against the headstone. "I thought you should have this back. It belongs here with you until Lily's old enough to carry it." As they stood in comfortable silence, David reflected on everything that had changed. Gentech had just secured its second round of funding and hired 15 employees. His panic attacks still happened, but less frequently, and he'd learned to manage them instead of being controlled by them. Most importantly, Lily was thriving, confident in her abilities, secure in her father's love, and blessed with an aunt who adored her. "Dad," and Lily's voice was thoughtful, "do you think Mom knows about Aunt Victoria helping us?" David considered the question seriously. "I think Mom always hoped we'd find our way to each other eventually. She knew Victoria loved her even when they couldn't be together. Like how I love you even when you have scared days." "Exactly like that." Victoria stood and dusted off her knees. "Should we head to lunch? I promise to take you to that new place with the amazing pasta." As they walked back toward the car, Lily skipping ahead while David and Victoria followed more slowly, David felt Amy's presence in a way he hadn't since her death. Not the crushing weight of loss that had defined the past 2 years, but something lighter. Approval. Love, the sense that she was satisfied with the choices they'd made. "Victoria," he said quietly, "there's something I want to ask you." She looked at him with raised eyebrows. "That sounds ominous." "Not ominous, important." David stopped walking, suddenly nervous despite everything they'd been through together. "I want to make you Lily's legal guardian. If something happens to me, I want her to stay with family." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "David, are you sure? Amy chose you as her sister before she chose me as her husband. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. And Lily loves you. More than that, she trusts you to protect what matters to her." "What matters to her?" "Our family. This strange, wonderful thing we've built together." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, watching Lily examine interesting rocks along the pathway. "Yes," she said finally, "I would be honored." That evening, as had become their routine, the three of them gathered around David's kitchen table for dinner and homework time. Lily was working on a school project about family traditions, while David reviewed code and Victoria answered emails on her laptop. "Aunt Victoria," Lily looked up from her assignment, "what were Mom's favorite traditions when you were kids?" "Well," Victoria set aside her laptop, "your mom loved making paper airplanes on rainy days. She claimed she was going to design one that could fly forever." "Did she ever figure it out?" "Not exactly, but she did design a paper airplane that could carry a message from her bedroom window to mine. We used to send notes back and forth when our parents thought we should be sleeping. Lily's eyes lit up. Can you show me how to make one? Within minutes, the kitchen table was covered with paper airplanes of various designs. David found himself laughing as Victoria demonstrated Amy's technique for creating the perfect wing fold, while Lily provided running commentary on aerodynamic principles she'd learned from her martial arts training. Balance is everything, Lily explained seriously, launching a particularly elegant design across the room. Sensei Kim says it's true for fighting and flying, and probably everything else too. Your sensei is a wise woman, Victoria agreed. David's phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Kim, Lily's therapist. How are things going with the family sessions? Lily seems much more settled lately. He smiled as he typed back, better than I could have hoped. She's teaching us as much as we're teaching her. The family therapy sessions had been Victoria's suggestion after she'd learned about David's PTSD and Lily's anxiety about his panic attacks. Having a neutral space to discuss their fears and hopes had helped all three of them understand how to support each other better. Dad, Lily's voice broke into his thoughts. Are you having a good day today? It was a question she'd started asking regularly since they had agreed on no more secrets. Some days the answer was harder to give than others, but today it was easy. I'm having a very good day. How about you? Me too. My project's almost done. Aunt Victoria's teaching me about Mom's paper airplanes, and tomorrow is pizza day at school. Simple pleasures, Victoria observed with a smile. Later, after Lily had gone to bed and Victoria was preparing to leave, she lingered at the front door with something clearly on her mind. What is it? David asked. The board meeting next week. They're going to vote on the expansion proposal, opening offices in 3 more cities, hiring 50 more employees. If it passes, Gen Tech will officially become a major company. And if it doesn't pass, it will pass. The question is whether you're ready for that kind of growth. David considered this. 6 months ago, the idea of managing a company with dozens of employees would have triggered an immediate panic attack. Now it felt challenging but manageable. I'm ready, he said, surprised by his own certainty. We've built something worth expanding. Yes, we have. Victoria paused. David, there's something else. Something I should have told you weeks ago. His stomach tightened. What? Marcus Rodriguez, your friend from Technova. He's been asking questions. About why you really left, about your arrangement with me, about whether there's anything personal between us. David felt a heat rise in his cheeks. What did you tell him? The truth. That you're brilliant, that I refuse to let you quit, and that anything else is none of his business. Victoria looked at him seriously. But he made me realize that I've never asked what you want people to know about our relationship. What do you mean? I mean, are we business partners who happen to be family friends, who happen to start a company together? Something more complicated than either of those things. David stared at her, suddenly aware that they'd never actually defined what they were to each other. Lily called her Aunt Victoria. Victoria called him and Lily her family. They worked together seamlessly, parented Lily together naturally, and had created something that felt like, what exactly, I don't know, he said honestly. What do you want us to be? Victoria smiled. I want us to be whatever feels right. No pressure, no expectations, just us. Us works for me. Good, because I was thinking, if the expansion vote passes, we're going to need to travel more. Site visits, investor meetings, that kind of thing. I can't travel much with Lily. I know, which is why I was thinking we should buy a bigger house. Something with room for all 3 of us, plus a home office where we can work when we need to be available for Lily. David's heart skipped. You want to live together. I want Lily to have stability. I want you to have support. And selfishly, I want to be part of your daily lives instead of just visiting a few times a week. Before David could respond, a small voice came from the stairway. Can I pick my room? They both turned to see Lily sitting on the steps in her pajamas, clearly having listened to the entire conversation. Lily Chen, David said with mock severity. This is becoming a habit. I couldn't help it. You were talking about important stuff. She stood up and walked over to them. I think we should get a house with a big yard so I can practice my forms outside. And maybe a workshop where Dad can build things. And definitely a room for Aunt Victoria's books because she has like 1 million of them. Victoria laughed. How do you know I have a lot of books? Your apartment has books in every room, even the bathroom. Lily looked at her seriously. People with that many books need proper shelves. She's not wrong, David admitted. So we're really doing this, Victoria asked. The three of us living together, building this company, raising this remarkable child. David looked at Lily, who was practically vibrating with excitement, then at Victoria, who'd somehow become essential to their family's happiness. Amy would want us to be happy, he said finally. And I can't remember the last time I felt this settled. Settled is good, Victoria agreed. Settled is boring, Lily interjected. But happy is better than settled, and safe is better than happy, and loved is best of all. And we're all three. David knelt down and pulled his daughter into a hug. When did you get so wise? I've been practicing. Aunt Victoria says wisdom comes from paying attention to what works. Over Lily's head, David met Victoria's eyes. What worked was this: the three of them together supporting each other through ordinary challenges and extraordinary opportunities alike. All right, he said, standing up with Lily in his arms. Tomorrow we start looking at houses. But tonight someone needs to go to bed for real this time. As Victoria gathered her things and headed to her car, she called back, I'll start researching neighborhoods with good schools and martial arts studios. And bookstores, Lily added from the doorway. Definitely bookstores. After Victoria left, David tucked Lily into bed for the second time that night. Dad, she said as he turned off her light, are you still scared sometimes? Sometimes, he admitted, but not as much as before. And when I am scared, I remember that I'm not facing it alone anymore. Because we're a family. Because we're a family. As David settled into his own bed that night, he thought about the journey that had brought them to this point. Amy's death had felt like the end of everything good in his life. But somehow her sister's arrival had shown him that grief didn't have to mean giving up on joy. They were building something new. Not a replacement for what they'd lost, but an addition to it. Amy would always be part of their family, carried forward in Lily's courage and David's determination, and Victoria's fierce protectiveness of the people she loved. His phone buzzed with one last text from Victoria. Thank you for letting me come home. David smiled in the darkness and typed back, thank you for making us a family worth coming home to. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, business decisions, parenting questions, the ordinary complexities of three people learning to build a life together. But for the first time since Amy's death, David looked forward to facing those challenges. Outside his window, the same stars that had witnessed his darkest moments now watched over a man who'd learned to accept help, a child who'd learned to trust her own strength, and a woman who'd found her way back to family after years of isolation. Sometimes the most profound changes began with a simple decision to open the door when someone knocked. Sometimes the family you needed was the family you chose to build. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, love was strong enough to bridge any gap, even the one between the life you'd planned and the life that was waiting for you. 6 months later, David stood in the backyard of their new house, watching Lily demonstrate her latest martial arts forms, while Victoria cheered from the deck. Gentech had successfully expanded to 4 cities and employed nearly 100 people. More importantly, David's panic attacks had become rare enough that he'd started teaching a monthly workshop for other single parents dealing with PTSD. Dad, Lily called out, watch this. As his daughter executed a perfect spinning kick, David felt Amy's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. Not the crushing weight of loss he'd carried for so long, but something gentler. Approval, love, and the unshakable knowledge that she was proud of the family they'd built together. That was amazing, he called back, meaning every word. Victoria appeared beside him with 2 cups of coffee. She's thinking about trying out for the junior tournament team. Of course she is. Amy's daughter would never do anything halfway. Neither would Amy's husband. Victoria bumped his shoulder affectionately. Speaking of which, the Peterson account wants to schedule a presentation for next month. Are you ready to pitch to a Fortune 500 company? David considered the question. A year ago, the idea would have sent him into a spiral of anxiety. Now it felt like an exciting challenge. We're ready, he said confidently. All of us. As the sun set over their backyard paintings, the sky in shades of gold and pink, David Chen finally understood what Amy had seen in him all along. Not perfection, but potential. Not fearlessness, but courage. Not the ability to avoid loss, but the strength to build something beautiful from the pieces that remained. Sometimes the most important journeys began with a resignation letter you never submitted. Sometimes the family you needed found you when you were brave enough to let them in. And sometimes love was exactly strong enough to heal what felt irreparably broken. Thank you for joining David, Lily, and Victoria on their journey from brokenness to belonging. If this story reminded you that families come in many forms and that healing is always possible when we're willing to accept help, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of chosen family, second chances, and the courage to build something beautiful from life's unexpected moments. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever found family in unexpected places? What would you do if you discovered a long-lost relative who wanted to help during your darkest moment? Your stories might inspire someone else who's struggling to believe that their story isn't over yet.